Welcome everyone to another spiritual conversation. We're a group here from the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Center in Halifax. Experienced students of the center who've just been getting together once or twice a week during these challenges of the coronavirus crisis to talk about what we're thinking and feeling and bringing a spiritual angle to our processing of these things. And today our topic is to talk about, during these times, what gives us hope, wherein lies hope in this situation. And we'll jump right into it. And to remind people, we're using the same process. We took a minute or so of silence, and then we just did automatic writing of what came to us. And now we're pretty much just reading to you what we've wrote. So Carol, over to you.
Thank you, David. Certainly as the COVID situation has gone on, we are called to go deeper, as it were, to find that hope. And I think it may seem like a cliche, but to me, hope is a choice. We make a determined thought to stay hopeful. And I think we tap into that inner knowingness that we have, that we've come through other difficult situations in the past, and we've come through successfully. It's not uncommon that we will have moments of weakness and where we sense our energy is dropping. But I think that's the time when we stop, say, okay, I acknowledge that I'm having this moment. And then go back within, go to our source, go to God, as it were, in meditation, and really, in a sense, recharge and re-energize ourselves, knowing, as I've said, that we have been successful in the past. So I think it's equally important to take care of ourselves during the whole process, all the basics like proper nutrition, specific scheduled times for meditation, getting fresh air, and basically topping ourselves up with new energy as the time goes on and we're in our situation for a prolonged period. So I think basically keeping in touch with other folks who are positive also is helpful. We can swap ideas in terms of strategies we've used that are helpful and inspire each other with those strategies. So that's pretty well my thoughts for the moment.
Thank you, Carol. That's great. Some very practical advice. I also really appreciated how you started with that we have to make that choice. We have to have a determined thought to be hopeful and to go deeper within ourselves to find that hope. So that was really useful. Judy, can we hear from you?
Thank you, David, and thank you, Carol. That was lovely. Yes, it's a choice. I like that idea. Two things came to me immediately, and they were two very different tracks. The first thing was I remembered before coming to meditation in my days and years of social activism. I look back now and I feel like what was driving me that entire time was a desire for freedom for others, freedom for myself. And I think like others on the spiritual journey, I think we understand fairly quickly that freedom starts by empowering the self. It starts inside. And as a meditator, to see what are the conditioned responses that make me put myself down, make me small in the face of obstacles or challenges, what judgments or dependencies shrink my heart and my sense of resilience. And I am certainly seeing in these times where I'm spending, more and more time alone. I'm seeing more of these during this time, and it feels a little bit like this period is like an autoclave, burning away some of the contamination in the soul. And so for me, one aspect of hope is I can see my freedom on the horizon. because of this time. And the other one that came, so that was very internal in terms of my own personal journey. The other one was just seeing how much it feels like we are together on this, the whole world. Many things, and I'm sure everybody has seen them, but really touch the heart. And I think it's part of humanity as we see the essential. We understand what is essential now. The body needs food and shelter, but the soul needs meaning and connection and love and creative expression. And even if we all rush back to the way we lived before, I don't know why I feel like the feeling will stay with us. So even if that feeling, I don't feel like it will go away, is what I want to say, that maybe it will become temporarily buried under the noise of busyness as people jump back to their lives again. But I think it will be closer to the surface, the feeling. And so whether that feeling was a togetherness of everyone on the globe, or whether it was just the quiet time spent with children or loved ones, or a real attention that all of humanity is suddenly paying attention to those that require our assistance more, because actually it matters that they be safe and they be well. So whatever it is, but I think that feeling will stay with us. And for me, that's sort of the foundation of the civilization I want to live in. And I read something by Margaret Mead this morning. She said, of all the things that are indicators to her as an anthropologist and in the archaeological world even, an indicator of civilization was a broken human femur that had mended. So a broken bone, leg bone. It wasn't the artistry, the crafts, the pottery, all of the stuff that we associate with civilization. For her, it was to find a human femur that had mended, meant that in that place at that time, people cared enough for others that they went out and got the food required for somebody who couldn't go out and take care of themselves. To her, that was the first sign of a civilization. So for me, I have great hope that those signs of civilization are with us at this time and will stay with us even if we get busy again.
Thanks, Judy. That was very nice. Lots to think about, both on the global scale of how we're working together as a human society these days, and what we can do in terms of empowering the self to find some sense of freedom and growing our resilience, not shrinking our resilience. So very useful thoughts there, and nice story from Margaret Mead as well of what really makes civilization, helping the weaker ones to eat and survive. And in parts of the world, it's getting to that point these days. So thank you. Leela, what would you like to add to this?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Carol and Judy. Two themes came to my mind, and the first one is a follow-up of what Carol mentioned about this knowing. So this feeling that hope is a very sweet feeling for all of us, and it's a feeling that we know well, and we've known it all our lives, really. If you think about different circumstances and situations and experiences that we've had, even from a child, we've had hope in our heart. Simple things like, mastering how to ride a bicycle. We had hope that we could do it. So I think this knowing, partnered with our imagination, can bring hope to a more prominent place in ourselves. So I'll read what I wrote. The core of hope for me lies in the knowing that we all can move forward with a clearer vision of the kind of world we want to live in. To be forcefully removed from this world, temporarily as we are now, has allowed us to have a new perspective on the kind of world we are living in and to envision a different one. How can we create a world more aligned to our values of peace, equality, abundance, and prosperity? We need to both return to what we know intuitively as good in all of us personally and to all of us collectively, but also we need to call on our imaginations to create the kind of world we truly want. We all know the feeling of hope well, from childhood to adulthood, and the sweet cousins of hope: faith, maturity, positivity, stability. So now we can use hope to create thoughts which will turn into action. Setting aside time to consciously create these thoughts of a future we want, not one that will happen to us, but one that we actually consciously create, is the essence of bringing hope back to the forefront of our minds and by extension out into our world.
Thank you, Leela. Very nice. And I liked how you connected the imagination with the creativity that Judy mentioned, and the knowing with the inner knowing that Carol started us off with. And that I think you called them the children of hope: faith, maturity, and positivity. All of those things are so important, and this is an opportunity for all of us to know and create something new that we want, and that's where the hope will come from. Very wise. Thank you. Tim, for you, your thoughts of where lies the hope in this situation?
Thanks, David. I was thinking that recently hope's face has changed significantly. In today's world, my anchors for what allows me to look positively into the future are probably eroding, or could be eroding, or maybe even gone completely. And this can be very disconcerting. But if you look in the past, there are times when each of us has faced seemingly hopeless situations. And we've come through with a degree of self-respect. And so when those typical anchors of the external world are gone, well, where do we go? Well, I can look inside myself. And I have to look inside myself because there's nowhere else to look. And inside of us is very rich territory. And this is the spiritual side where I'm looking. And I have to ask myself, what do I really need to get through this? And where can I find the equivalent of what I was looking for before, as far as some type of an anchor? And I don't have any hard, fast answers, but I do know for myself that knowing that I'm an eternal soul and that nothing can change that is very beneficial. And so I have to ask, so how do I connect with that part of me for a seed of hope?
Thanks, Tim. Lots to think about. An anchor, a seed for hope in our identity as eternal souls. And I think that's a really, really important thing for people to consider. I also appreciated your thought of, thinking to the past and what we can learn from the past, where we've managed to go through these kinds of situations before. And then it's about our own self-respect and our own learning in those situations. So thank you for that. Wow, lots we're learning here. But let's go to Debbie.
Thank you, everyone on this call. It's precious reminders that I'm getting. And when I thought about hope, I remember being in a workshop called Images and Voices of Hope that we organized in Halifax in the early 2000s. And it was to honor all those vocal and visionary volunteers in our city who for decades, these special people had the capacity to see better times in difficult situations. And at that workshop, I was in a small group with a person who came with a friend. The person really didn't want to be there. And in our small group announced, I don't know why I'm here. I have no reason to be hopeful. And I think you're all crazy if you do. And right now, I think there may be a lot of people out there who are feeling that. And today, in these days of the 2020 pandemic, I think there is good reason to feel the way that person did at that time. We don't know what's coming, so what's hope got to do with it? My feeling of hope comes from the daffodils pushing up in the yard, crocuses blooming, robins have come back, and this morning there was a brilliant moment of the earth turning to reveal the sun. And that happens every morning, except here in Eastern Canada, where we can go days without seeing the sun. But we know it's there. We know it's there. And as my friends have talked about, knowing lies at the heart of hope. So hope lies in my memory and it lies in my heart. So today, let me breathe deeply and focus on what is renewing itself after a long winter, and know, as the world turns, all is as it should be.
Thank you, Debbie. That's beautiful. All is as it should be. The earth is turning towards the sun. I think that's very inspiring to all of us, that the spring comes after the winter, and to keep that in mind. I've written here that if we listen to the news and the constant updates about COVID-19, it's hard, as you said, Debbie, to stay hopeful in this situation. So I was thinking one thing we can do is to stop listening to the constant updates about COVID-19. Just stopping and having a little time in silence is always helpful. We've also all heard the importance of focusing on the positive, and I think that is real. Where our attention goes, energy flows. So if we listen to negative things, we'll spiral into a negative space. If we listen for and focus on the stories about positive things that are happening, we can stay, even for a few moments, in a more positive and hopeful space. But these days with COVID-19, I think it's bigger than that. And because it's bigger than that, I think we need a bigger solution to give us hope. And for me, that's having faith and trust in a higher power. And that higher power may be named and be understood differently for different people. For some, it might be trust and faith in science to get us through this situation. For some, it's the recommendations and the knowledge put in place by our political leaders. For some, it's faith in humanity and the caretaking of our fellow human beings in our neighborhood or across the country or around the world. And for some, it's faith in a religious or a spiritual belief system, whatever that may be, that gives us hope. However we define that higher power, I think what's really important is the faith and trust we put in that power, that it's goodness. And like Debbie was saying about the spring is coming, we have to trust in that ultimate goodness, that there will be victory over this evil of the coronavirus we're experiencing at this time. And that, like others said, we make the choice to focus on those positive things and see those positive things coming. So I hope there was something useful in that. Certainly listening with all my colleagues, there's lots of practical tips there and lots of suggestions of how to make choices for ourselves, not in a flippant way, but in a deeply spiritual way, to think about the opportunities we have at this time to be hopeful and be positive about the kind of world we can imagine for ourselves and others in the future. Thanks very much for being part of this spiritual conversation.